And if you could start recording. Great. So just to let you know, everybody, we are recording the session. I hope nobody has any objections to that. Obviously, it's great to be able to send out and for everybody to see it afterwards. So good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning. It's very rainy here in sunny Essex. So on behalf of me, Ami and Claire, Ami A, me B and Claire C, only took us 4 years to work that out. We'd like to welcome you to our first webinar of 2024, where we're going to be covering everything to do with remuneration, all the changes in regards to holiday pay, commission, and so on and so forth. We would obviously like it to be as interactive as possible. We do have quite a lot of questions that have been submitted beforehand. We have a chat box at the bottom. Hopefully you can all see that. So please do, I can't see mine, but hopefully it's there somewhere. Please do put your questions in there. Likewise, at the end, we'll do a Q&A. You can put them down there or just put your hands up and we'll have a bit of interaction as well. But for the first part, we will just be talking with each other and with you. We also have Juliet Dennis. Hi, Juliet, Chief Reporter from Travel Weekly, who's going to be covering today's session and hopefully putting some fantastic bits into Travel Weekly as well. So thank you again for joining us. Great turnout, and I think it actually proves the importance of what we're talking about today. Our last session was last October, following a series of really successful ones during the pandemic. But today it's all about remuneration, benefits, holiday pay, commission and so on. And I know all of us here as business owners, leaders, decision makers and heads of department, it's an absolute minefield for us all. Oh, if somebody could please just put their mute on, that would be great. Thank you very much. I think that might be Jules. Oh, there she is. It's a minefield for us all, and we have experts here with Ami and Claire who can hopefully unravel some of the myths that are behind it. With the expertise and the experience we've got here, we're going to, fingers crossed, be able to answer all your questions, and you'll come away from this webinar fully equipped, ready to roll anything relevant out to your team. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Barbara. It's actually, everyone now calls me Basha. That's my Polish name, and it's even got Basha on Zoom. So that's my Polish equivalent of Barbara. I'm from Travel Recruitment, from C&M Travel Recruitment. We are leading travel recruitment agency in the UK. We've been around 26 years, covering all sectors within the travel industry, all fields, all disciplines, all roles, from OTAs, tour operators, TMCs, you name it, we do it. All my team and I have also worked in the travel industry as well. I'm joined by my very good friends and esteemed panel, Ami and Claire, and I'd like you to both introduce yourself. Over to you, Ami, the A from the ABC.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure I need but to introduce myself because I think most of you know who I am. Certainly see my face pop up here, there and everywhere. I work for Travlaw, which is a niche law firm just acting for the travel industry, and I specialise in helping employers deal with all their employment law issues, but particularly focusing on the travel industry.
Thank you, Ami. Claire?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you. I know lots of people on here. I've got some good HR friends and personal friends as well, so it's great to see you all. Yeah, I'm Claire Steiner. I am an HR freelancer. I've been doing HR for over 30 years and over 5 within the travel and tourism sector, and for the last 20 odd I've been self-employed, working a bit like Basha with everybody from OTAs to tech companies to travel agencies and TMCs and everything in between. And yeah, and people and talent is my absolute passion. So a lot of other people know me through the work I do with the Global Travel and Tourism Partnership, which is a charitable educational trust introducing tourism into state schools in developing countries. And I also sit with Basha on the ICT board, where I also co-founded the Future You Foundation and initiative, where we bring education industry together to hopefully get lots of lovely new fresh talent into our wonderful sector.
Thank you very much, Claire. I forgot to mention about ITT as well. Yeah, so talent, staffing, employment is obviously a huge passion to all three of us, and that's why it's very relevant and applicable to what we why we do these webinars and what we're going to be talking about today. Before I do just a little bit of a synopsis of recruitment, we've got a few polls, as we always like to do. And the first poll, which I will launch, where is it? Help me. Oh, here we go. First question I'd like to ask you all is, does your company have, in your eyes, have a competitive remuneration and benefits package in place? I'm just going to launch it now. And it's a simple yes or no. Can you see the results of that, Ami and Claire?
Yeah.
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, so we're saying going up and down. So it's about 61% yes, 62% yes, 38% no. Probably what we thought, yeah? I'm going to end that poll now. 60-40, there we go.
60-40.
60-40. Just bear that in mind so we will work on that figure during the course of this webinar. An interesting result, but it's no surprise that 40% of you, which probably reflects also the sector as well, don't feel that you have a competitive remuneration package, because that is one of the biggest challenges that we're having in our industry, is attracting talent because of that reason. I'm going to just start with a general overview, recruitment, and specifically on salaries, holidays, benefits, etc. I have a couple of slides which I am going to share. I didn't just want to bombard you with stats, verbalizing them. We don't often do slides today, but because there's quite a lot of information, I'm just going to share my screen. Here we go. You got that? Can we see that? Nod, yeah, yep. Thank you. Okay, travel recruitment stats. Salaries have gone up 11.6% from 2022 to 2023 last year. That was an average of 34 grand, up by 21% from 2019. That figure actually sounds quite attractive, doesn't it? However, these figures are significantly skew-whiffed from the top end, your 50, your 60K and above, because those salaries have increased. The lower end, your entry level and so on, your 22 to 25, 26K salaries, they've probably increased by less than 1%, I believe. So yes, the average looks like it's gone up, but the lower end still haven't. So we do have an issue with attracting talent because of the salaries that we pay. We know the travel industry isn't the best paid industry in the world, but it's still not paying enough. And if we carry on doing this, we're going to lose the talent. Just to give you an idea, vacancies are actually down. Were down last year from the previous year, but of course 2022 was a record year for the whole recruitment sector within the travel industry, and 2023 was down but 20% from 2019. Placements were down last year to the previous year. I know 50% sounds like a big number, but 2022 was a record-breaking year for all recruitment firms, and I'm sure everybody knows that everybody was recruiting and so on. Oh, let's get whoever's got their child, please put your mute on. I think that might be you, Harry. Owen, could you please put Harry on mute? Thank you. Placements down, candidates up by 8% last year from the previous year, which is really a really good figure for you guys who are looking for staff. And the fact that placements are down, candidates are up and vacancies are down, actually means that the parity, there's not such a disparity. The parity is decreasing, which there are some positives out of that. And just some general travel recruitment stats for this year, 2024. I know we've only had January. We've had a strong start to January for both vacancies and candidates, but still down from obviously last year, which was an exceptional year. Vacancies are up by 111% from December, so January to December, but down from last January. And candidates were up by 81% from December, which is really, really positive. We are getting the candidates in, not always necessarily right for the roles that we've got, but we are getting them in. but down from the previous year. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and so I can see all your faces. There we go. So some interesting stats there. We all record this, and I can send you those stats again, but it's interesting as to why these have got an impact on what we do, looking for talent, attracting talent, and retaining talent. I think the key thing is making sure that A, we look after our people, B, we are constantly looking at our remuneration packages, and that's not just about money, and we are constantly evolving and moving with the times and listening to what's going on in the industry from experts that we have here, from us as well, because we know what's going on out there in regards to what other companies are paying, and also what candidates are looking for, and benefits as well. Benefits are a lot of candidates are looking for the standard, the healthcare, obviously commission, bonuses, and so on. Simon Husgrover from Donata, an ex-colleague of mine, he's actually submitted quite a few questions, but one of the questions was, are there any outside the box benefits or rewards that other companies are providing to their workforce other than the obvious pay increases? Yes, there are, absolutely. And so a lot of companies are now beginning to adopt this, and please feel free to make some notes into the chat box if anybody else has got some other bits to add. Wellbeing days is something, Simon and guys, wellbeing days is something that a lot of companies are now beginning to do. In fact, one of our clients offer 2 wellbeing days a year, and so we've now adopted that, and I now give everybody at C&M 2 wellbeing days a year, a couple of £100 to go off and look after themselves. It could be a yoga day, it could be a day at spa, could be a golf day, lunch with friends, or whatever. It's just some time on their own. Other things, birthdays off, more and more companies are beginning to do that. Charity days as well. We give a couple of charity days. So even if it's making cakes for the school fair to, I did an ultramarathon last year, did you all know? And I took a couple of those charity days to help with my training, and I did it for charity. So things like that as well. And of course, team building days, incentive days, and so on, incentive trips. They are benefits that go over and above the standard pension, healthcare, and so on.
Can I interrupt, Basha? I just comment I made, and I say this all the time. When I go out, when I talk to a lot of young people, students in particular, and there is a reason they want to work in travel, right? Because it seems glamorous, but they want to travel. And I think we are losing sight of that sometimes. And actually, companies should really think about this. And it's not just for your sales staff. Of course, you're going to put travel incentives in there. They're going to be fam trips and stuff like that. But an increasing number of staff are going back to the basics and saying, giving staff a travel fund every year. Now, I know that there's a couple of people on here whose companies do that really, really well. I'm looking at you, Adolfo. But, you know, I think people really need to consider the benefits of why people are working in travel, and that will help them get over some of the lower salaries, because actually, if people will accept maybe a slightly lower salary if they have these amazing benefits or perceived amazing benefits that they get to travel. And it is something I bang on about, but I do think some companies miss this as a trick.
And I think, Claire, you've hit the nail on the head there, haven't you? That a remuneration package is a package. It's not just your basic salary. And so, okay, in certain aspects of the travel industry may not be able to compete with basic salaries in other industries, but we need to encompass why people want to work in this industry. And that is one very smart and clever way, and a way in which ultimately the employer benefits anyway, because their staff become more knowledgeable in the whole world. It's
a holistic benefit, isn't it? Almost, yeah. Ami and I were at an event on Tuesday, weren't we? I think we even had some people in the audience there, an ABTA event, talking about talent and stuff. And of course, all the things we're talking about are tangible, but it's the intangible things like culture, employer brand. I think that's something that we all touch on and focus on a lot. But and Claire, you believe strongly in this as well. Having that employer brand, that somebody wants to work for you, as well as all the other their well-being policies, the sustainability, etc. Do you want to add anything to that, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm preaching the converted with the number of people here, but employer branding is key. And some of my frustrations have always been around that employers spend a lot of money on marketing themselves to their client base and don't spend an awful lot of money on marketing themselves to their employee base.
Yeah.
And actually, we need to see more of that. And and again, I say this all the time: every employee you've ever had or have at the moment are ambassadors for your company, so you should be using them. You should be using them to promote you as a brand. And there are companies that do this really well. And actually, I was at a big event in Sheffield last week, and the Conrad Dublin, the HR director, was online talking about technology and how they use tech to help them with attracting and customer loyalty, but also with their staff. And this company have just been voted #1 globally, not just in travel and hospitality, but #1 globally as the best company to work for. And the way they do that is by engaging with the staff and promoting themselves as employers. And hospitality is a tough gig for a lot of people to promote. They're struggling far more than travel are in attracting staff, and they're doing it, and they're being recognised for doing it. So I think we need to look at best practice and what other people are doing out there, and actually doing more to engage with our potential employees of the future. And you can do that through a number of different ways, but obviously I'm biased.
Would that be with things like employee engagement surveys and things like that, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Employee engagement surveys. It does seem to have kind of quietened down a bit at Glassdoor. However, it is still out there. And I think we need to keep an eye on things like that and be responding and being active. We're all into consumer reviews. Let's make sure our staff reviews are the same. And if you're always going to have, like you do on consumer review sites, disgruntled people trying to make a point. But actually how you deal with that and how you respond to that, again, shows what sort of organisation you are, and one that cares, and one that is open to communication. And that says a lot to the people looking at your company, because we sit there and we talk to young people, say you need to research the company you're going to work for. They want to know about them as a business, and they do. And so what does when you're looking at your company as a new person, what does that say about you? And the culture as well, very different, different cultures. People, we all work for great companies, but it doesn't mean that one company is better than the other. We all have different needs and requirements, and the cultures will be right for some people and not for others. So I will get off my soapbox now.
No, it's absolutely, that's what today's about. It's almost like a fireside chat. And if anyone, and I'm seeing all the comments on the side, there's some chat, which Owen is our marketing and ops manager is kindly replying. Yes, this will be recorded. You don't have to take notes, and we will get back to any of these comments. But yeah, the other thing I suppose people could do it to attract the right people and to really shout out, like you say, everyone's very great at marketing to their consumers, but marketing to potential talent is, a day in the life of. I've seen some companies do it brilliantly. A day in the life of, be it on social media, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and so on. Day in the life of, from a travel consultant to the managing director to marketing director, and that could also be another way of really shouting about what an amazing business you are. And it is a fantastic industry, isn't it? We all work for fantastic businesses. It's a wonderful industry to work for. We just have to make sure that people realise that. Again,
I think it goes back to the point of being the employer of choice. And in terms of bringing that back to remuneration, that salaries alone are not going to make people join, because they're looking at the whole package of what the company has to offer me, and how I will feel valued in that organisation. So it's much bigger than just simple salaries, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which brings we're very good at these segues, aren't we, onto the next point, which I've got another poll. So as we all know, hopefully there's quite a lot of legislation that is coming in regards to holiday pay, overtime, salaries, and so on. And before we move on to mainly you, Ami, I do have another poll. The next poll we have, I'm just showing the results of that. I need to do that. Is, there we go. Does your company pay commission to staff? Can you see that?
We can't see it yet, Bash.
Is that launching? Oh. Why can't I launch it?
I'll launch it.
Can you launch it for me?
Can everyone see that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I bet it ends up on 60-40 again. 70-30 approximately. Okay, I'm going to end that. Okay, that's an interesting result as well. Not surprising though, really, is it, Ami and Claire? Which does lead us on into the mind-boggling changes that are happening this year in regards to holiday pay and commission and so on.
Yes.
I would like to. I don't know if people just put their hands up. Those of you that have got your cameras on. So, who is aware that we have got changes coming in regarding holiday pay and commissions? Well, that's good. That's good. So we have got hands up. That's great. Oh, brilliant, fantastic, great. Ami, over to you.
Thank you.
Where do we start?
Yeah. Normally, as Basha says, we don't really use slides in these sessions, but there's too much detailed information for me to do my little talk, and I am hoping to keep it little, on the changes that are coming into effect. I'm not going to lie, it is complicated. Those figures in that poll come as no surprise because the travel industry use commission heavily in their remuneration packages. And I think, Basha, you were alluding to this at the ABTA event that we did on Tuesday, that basic salaries tend to be quite low, but then they are supplemented by commission or overtime extra in a lot of cases. And it's the whole global remuneration package that we need to look at. So there's no nice way to say it. The cost of employing staff in the travel industry is going to increase. It's going to increase across all industries, and there are certain changes that I need to make you guys aware of. Hopefully most of you will be aware of them, but in relation to holiday pay and commission and overtime, I'm not so sure how many of the travel industry are firstly aware of the changes, or secondly, if they are aware, how many are actually implementing them. So, Basha, first slide, please.
Okay, one moment, please. Can we see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see that. I was just about to say that Chris Whitty had a better service when he asked for slides to be put up. But...
I'm multitasking, Ami. I'm multitasking.
We know that the national minimum wage goes up every April. It's going up to £11.44 per hour. I would like to hazard a guess and think that most in the travel industry are paid in excess of that anyway, but that's not necessarily always the case. And also the national living wage per hour, it's going to apply to anyone aged 23 plus. And from this April, that's going to go down to so capturing 21 and 22-year-olds. No surprise there. It goes up every year, normally by about £1 or so. So just factor that in, and that's all I really want to say about national minimum wage rises, because we know that they happen every year. But what I do want to spend a bit more time talking about is the next slide. So this has already come into effect. It came into effect in January of this year. And do you remember Brexit? Well, as part of the Brexit process, we had the Reform and Revocation Act. And that basically meant that if EU laws were not put onto the UK statute books by the 31st of December 2023, they would fall into sunset. So basically, on New Year's Day of this year, they would just disappear. So there's been quite a few changes to the UK statute books to implement the EU position and to implement changes that have come about through various case law. Now, I won't bore you too much with the detail of the case law, because ultimately you need to understand the position that's arisen as a result of the case law. But there was a case of Williams and British Airways where the pilots were basically only being paid their basic pay when they took annual leave. And they were saying, well, they're suffering a detriment because when they get overtime payments, which are a regular form of their remuneration, they are missing out. That was then followed by a very famous case of Locke and British Gas, whereby similarly so, when Mr. Locke took annual leave, he wasn't getting overtime payments, and therefore he was receiving a lower salary for taking annual leave, and therefore, again, suffering a detriment. So in summary, basically the courts decided that was not the purpose of the working time regulations and the working time directive, to subject someone to a detriment for taking annual leave by them just getting their basic salary as opposed to their normal remuneration. So that's been embedded basically from the 1st of January this year. And those are the definitions of when or what rather could amount to normal remuneration. So it's payments including commission payments intrinsically linked to the performance of tasks which a worker is contractually obliged to do or carry out. So we think about commission payments. Payments for professional personal status relating to length of service, seniority or professional qualifications go back to the pilot situation. So, you know, they might have extra levels or seniority, in which case they get paid different status payments. And then payments such as overtime payments, which have been regularly paid to a worker in the 52 weeks preceding the calculation. Now, what does regular mean? A one-off amount of overtime will probably not qualify. It has to be on a fairly regular basis. And I suppose the question then is, well, okay, that's fine, but how on earth do we calculate this? So you have to basically average it out on the preceding 52-week period from the date that the leave is sought to be taken. So if someone wants to take leave on the 1st of April this year, you'd have to basically go back to the 12-month period preceding the 1st of April and average it out so that their holiday pay isn't just their basic pay, but it factors in any regular overtime payments, factors in any regular commission payments and the like. Basha, if we can just move on to the next slide, please. Now, does this apply to all annual leave? Well, strictly speaking, no. And that's because, as a minimum, employers in this country have to give 5.6 weeks statutory leave. It's often the case that employers give more than that because you can contractually give whatever annual leave you want. 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks is not uncommon. And it might, you know, that's one of the things that forms part of someone's remuneration package. When we think of remuneration, we automatically just think of salaries. Well, it's more than that, isn't it? It's the benefits, it's the annual leave package and the rest of it. But going back to this, if we just assume that an employer is given 5.6 weeks statutory leave, that leave is made up of 2 chunks. The first 4 weeks are EU leave, and that's come from the EU directive. Okay, but when the UK implemented that EU directive, they decided actually the statutory minimum will be 5.6 weeks leave, so that 1.6 weeks leave comes from UK law. Okay, 5.6 is basically 20 days for the employer to choose when they want to take, and the 8 public holidays in normal circumstances. Now, it is only the 4 weeks EU law, strictly speaking, that has to be paid at the normal remuneration rate. Employers can, if they choose, pay the additional 1.6 weeks at basic or normal remuneration. Most employers that I'm speaking to, because of the administrative headache of working out what's EU law and what's UK leaves, rather, are just paying it at normal remuneration level. You can make that distinction if you want to, but in order to do so, you need to split it out into your contracts of employment. Okay. Now, the other thing I should mention is, yes, this is being put onto the UK statutory books from the 1st of January, but it's not effectively new law. Okay, this has been around for quite a while, and employees can potentially bring backdated claims. But you need to take proper legal advice, because it would be too generic advice that I could give you now on this call, depending on your particular circumstances. So,
shall I stop sharing now, Ami? You still want
yes,
that?
you can stop sharing, yes. So, as I've said, it's not new. Are the travel industry getting this right? I personally don't think that they are. I think there's a vast majority that are still unaware of it. Can employers choose to ignore it? No, because it's the law. Should they ignore it? Because ignorance is bliss sometimes? No, because all you're doing is increasing your potential liability. So I think, this law was put onto the UK statute books on the 1st of January. That is as good a time as any at the start of most people's annual leave years to rectify this and do the right thing moving forwards. So I don't know if we've got any questions in the chat box yet. Normally, on Tuesday, I got approached at lunchtime, question after question. It is complicated. There is some government guidance on their website, but if anyone's even attempted to have a look at it, you need a strong cup of coffee and about an hour or two to sit down and work your way through it, because they give you so many examples that even I after was like, okay.
It's a minefield. I've had to look at it. I've now heard this a few times and a few times from you, and it's now beginning to sink in.
Yes.
Claire and Ami, and a question that actually also came from Simon, thank you, Simon, was how are companies communicating this to their colleagues and their teams? How should it be done? How is it being done, if at all?
I think it's been done. When it's been done, is in the minority as far as the travel industry is concerned. Okay, and I think that's largely due to ignorance as opposed to deliberately not doing anything. And I think when it is being done, I think employers are basically reaching out to the staff and saying, look, this is coming to force. Sorry, this has come onto UK statute books from the 1st of this year. And this is what we're going to do with holiday. They're very much focused on what they're going to do moving forwards. Claire, I don't know if you've got any
and I know, I think you have to be upfront about it and be really open and transparent, as we all know that's the best practice anyway. I know you're going to come on to the back payment side of it. I think my worry is if companies aren't doing this and aren't being direct with the staff, a lot of people are going to find out about this and they're going to make up their own minds as to their rights. And we all know, it's like Dr. Google, isn't it? I've got a symptom and it must be that. It's a bit like that. People will read something about it and think that's it. I'm owed 6 years of back payments, and and my company owe me this, and and actually you've got to address it head on. It's there. One of the reasons, the main reason we put it on today is because it's here.
It's here now. Yeah. It's not going away. There's been a lot of publicity about it. It's on the government's website. So the reason why I'm saying that you need to do the right thing as soon as possible is to break a series of unlawful deductions, because ultimately an employee only ever has 3 months from the period of the last unlawful deduction, which this is what it would amount to bring a claim. Okay. And if they are,
sorry, I think you might need to just broaden, so some of the non-HR people on here, that unlawful deduction bit sounds a bit odd. Well, how's that an unlawful deduction?
Okay. No, fair point, Claire. I think sometimes because I taught this language all the time. No, it's fair.
No, so layman's terms.
Yeah, all right, okay. An unlawful deduction in the context of what we are talking about is the employee only getting their basic pay for a period of annual leave, whereas they should have got their normal remuneration, which includes commission, overtime, if that regularly forms part of their remuneration. If you've got employees who every month they get the same salary, whatever their salary is, divided by 52, and there's no element of commission or overtime or anything like that, then there's nothing to change here. There's nothing to worry about here. It's only in relation to those cases where normal remuneration includes commission, it includes monthly bonuses.
And as we saw from the poll, 70% of who's here do pay, and most tour operators, travel companies, OTAs, etc. do, because they're committed. They're salespeople. They've got a lot of salespeople,
and so those poll figures didn't surprise me. I thought they might be a little bit higher. But that, it's still the majority. So when I talk about unlawful deductions, I mean the holiday being paid at the wrong pay. Sorry, holiday leave being paid at the wrong amount. And employees have 3 months basically from that point to bring a claim. Now, if they get through the window, they can bring a backdated claim for 2 years. Now, you might think, well, but they then speak to their next colleague, and then they all start speaking to each other. That can be quite a sizable chunk. So moving forwards, this is something that employers really can't bury their head in the sand. They really need to address.
Claire.
That's the simplified version.
No, that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Do they want to unmute themselves or put their hands up or something on this? Or is everybody a little bit bamboozled?
Probably.
Is it new? Is this new to everyone that's watching, or is it yes, no, nodding, can't, no? Yeah. Okay, we've got some nods.
Sarah, I think, Sarah, you put your hand up, didn't you?
Oh, go on, Sarah.
Yeah, I suppose I was just curious, how would this apply in roles where maybe bonuses are paid quarterly? So it wouldn't be classed as regular as such.
Good question, yeah.
Okay. So a good question about bonuses, and one I've been asked quite a lot actually. An annual bonus wouldn't fall into this because that's not forming part of your regular remuneration, is it? A monthly bonus probably would do. Okay. Quarterly bonuses, I don't honestly know what the answer is because there's been no case law on it and they haven't actually given any guidance on it. Does being paid a bonus 4 times a year amount to regular remuneration? Depends which side of the fence you're sitting on, doesn't it? Erring on the side of caution, probably it would do because it's paid more than once.
What are most companies doing though? If they are paying quarterly, are they then using that as the average of the previous retrospective 52 weeks or not? Or
I think it's a 50-50 at the moment. Okay. Yeah. So it's a real split down the middle. Some are like, well, this doesn't form regular remuneration. And some are like, well, erring on the side of caution. Yes, it probably does because it's been paid more than once. I suppose it's how do you define regular, isn't it?
And most travel companies that we recruit for, and there's a lot of them here, and even TMCs pay, a lot of TMCs now pay commission. Usually they are paid monthly, usually. And the quarterly ones usually kick in as a sort of over and above.
I think so. I'm sort of segueing back to the thing about benefits actually, because what I'm seeing, and certainly with some of the smaller companies I work with, is a rise in non-sales bonuses. And so there's they want to reward the non-sales staff as much as the sales staff, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort, isn't it, to keep the company going well. And again, I think you're right, Ami. I think a lot of it's going to be in the wording in the contract. So Ami's quite right. You need to look at your contracts. Those who don't have the background in doing that should seek proper legal advice on it. So it's the wording on how that bonus is paid is going to mean something. But then even if it's this is not a benefit, this is not guaranteed, once you paid it regularly for 2 or 3 years, it becomes custom and practice. So people will start thinking, actually, that is part of my remuneration because I always get it. So again, there isn't one size fits all. And the first thing I would say is go and look at your contracts of employment on holidays and say, what does it say? I've just reissued contracts of employment for a new employer, and I made absolutely sure that under holiday pay it said your normal rate of pay. Yeah. Made it very clear.
I think coupled to that, it's not just the contract of employment. Holiday policies need to be reviewed as well. And I'm not going to talk about carrying over holidays or term time workers or irregular workers, because the law in that respect has changed as well, because we're focusing purely on remuneration here. But look at your contracts, look at your policies. And the other thing that's worth mentioning as well is it's all very well saying to me, right, average it out over the last 52 weeks. There isn't a reason why it's 52 weeks. It used to be 12 weeks, and it's to allow for seasonal adjustments. So that, if someone's tactically taking their holiday straight after a 12-week busy period, they're always going to get higher elements of holiday pay. And for new starters, you're not going to have 52 weeks worth of data. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you can only work with a number of weeks data that you've got and average it out over those. And I think there's a question in the chat box about if they don't hit their target. If the commission is based on achieving 50% of sales target and the target is not being met, does this still form part of holiday pay? So the key point here is it's not the target or the sales or performance or commission in that particular month. It's averaging out what their earnings were over the last 52 weeks.
So even if it fluctuates significantly, one month they might not get anything, next month they will, but
overall,
it's
why
it's the overall OTE, which a lot of if we've got sales res managers here, we know what that is. It's the OTE of what they'll get, and it's prorated.
Yeah.
Goodness, how do we communicate it then? You said, Claire and Ami, that not enough. It's not happening quickly enough or at all. But what is the best way of doing it?
Well, Juliet's already put an article out at the start of this year, I think it was, about these changes and how a lot of the travel industry aren't getting this right. Outside the travel industry, it's in the wider press. Every event that I've been at, I've done 3 so far this year. We've spoken about it. And I think employers need to be ahead of the game before their employees start knocking on their doors, because immediately you're going to be on the back foot then, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And this whole image of being a great place to work, the employer of choice, how do you advocate and argue that when you're not even getting the basics right?
It's good communication. I suppose it's how we communicate anything.
It exactly is, Basha. And I think, so smaller companies, they probably find it a lot easier to communicate these things out because they can literally just probably sit and talk to them about it in a town hall. We've all used to town halls. My thing is just face up to it and just do it. But you do need to be, depending on the size of your business, you need to think it through, because you need to be ready for the questions that are going to come. Are your contracts ready? But don't delay doing that either. Don't sit there going, well, I can't do the contracts for another 3 months, so I'm not going to say anything. I think you just have to be really open with everybody and say, we are reviewing all of our policies. We know that this is happening. Any questions come to us, a lot of companies will be putting together Q&As, particularly the bigger ones, so that staff, the HR team isn't constantly bombarded with everybody calling. But as I said, depending on the size of your business, you just got to tell them, and the sooner the better.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to be ready, but don't delay either.
Well, I think it's more than that as well. It's being ready and don't delay, because ultimately, every month that passes by where you are not paying the right holiday pay, your pot of potential liability is increasing and increasing and increasing. So the only way to reduce that, or to stop it, or to minimize it, is to start doing the right thing.
I think, it's an interesting, so January is traditionally a very busy month for travel. And so a lot of people don't take holiday. That said, though, for more support staff that aren't necessarily full front, January can be a time that they take the time off because they're slightly less busy. So again, you will have already potentially got staff that haven't had this happen, and you need to go back and look at that very quickly and see that and address it. You're quite right. And as I said, yes, be ready, but do it in conjunction with telling them.
Wow, lots to think about. Samantha from Abtot has put in the chat box, do you envisage lower basic salaries being phased in for those roles earning commission in order to compensate for the increases where commission holiday extras needs to be paid on top? How will this impact on attracting talent? No, personally, I don't envisage lower salaries. They can't get any lower because we have to attract. If they get any lower, they're going to be lower than minimum wage. So
let's turn it on its head then, right? More commission they earn, the more they're going to get in holiday pay.
Absolutely.
So actually, let's look at it that way.
Absolutely.
So this could be seen to be a little carrot.
We can spin it. Yeah, absolutely. If the industry was to do that, Samantha, then it would have an even bigger impact on attracting talent into the sector, which we know that there's a war on talent at the moment. So I don't think it will impact. I certainly hope it doesn't. But yeah, let's watch this space. Just going back to holidays and other benefits and so on, but that was very good synopsis. Thank you, Ami. I think that
it's not easy to simplify.
No, it's not, but you did it. Thank you. Just going back to holidays and there's and overtime and so on. Claire, you and I and Ami have spoken about things like unlimited holidays and so on. And just going back to what one of your slide there, Ami, saying the 5.6 weeks, equating to a minimum of 20 days taken holiday plus 8 days bank holidays. Just to let everybody know, really 20 days is the bare minimum. Most companies are now really giving a minimum of 22, if not more. I think any candidate, doesn't matter what level, that's being offered 20 days holidays, they're probably going for another company which are paying more holidays, receiving more holidays. Just an FYI, really. I'm only passing on the information. So
I think from drafting contracts for various employees, that's rare nowadays that they are only offering the basic minimum, even for very junior roles.
Yeah, it's 22 minimum up to 25 days, really. Oh, another thing, another point to your question also, Simon, another way of giving extra benefits that might not necessarily come out of salary, even though extra holidays sort of are cash, but not, is extra days for longevity. So obviously 25 days being whatever the standard or the maximum, and once they've been here for say 10 years, they get an extra day, 15 years an extra day, and so on.
I would say on average the contracts I do tend to do after 2 or 3 years. That people start to see their thing. But you're right, the starting point is less. I think the challenge we have is, right, do we pay just the 20 days that is the legal bare minimum at normal pay? Do we actually go, well, okay, we'll do the 5.6, which is our, is the UK law, and make that reasonable? Is it reasonable to do that? But then actually people who have worked for us for longer, do they see the benefit of getting normal pay for those additional days, which are recognition of their service? Or do we just say, actually, no, you're going to only get paid your basic rate at that point? And just to also go on, you mentioned about unlimited holiday. I've recently introduced this with the senior team in a company, but I made it very clear in the contract that they had to take a minimum of 20 days, right? Well, and the 5.6, they do bank holidays anyway, because there is the working time directive and people can fall foul. But after that, they can take anything they want. But I made it very clear what they would be paid for any of the unlimited holiday they could take.
And that's their normal, as opposed to their, so excuse me if I'm using the wrong terminology, that would be classed as their normal. If they go over and above.
That would be the basic.
Yeah, the basics.
At the end of the day, we're talking the senior team, and they earn a lot of money anyway. So I think it's and they have bonus schemes and everything else. I mean, every company is different, and every
it's relative, of course.
Yeah. So unlimited holidays tends to be towards the senior end, doesn't it?
It's still very new in our sector. We haven't heard a lot of it. Yeah.
And it's about trust, isn't it? It's about getting your job done in order to be able to take unlimited leave, but also making sure that your contracts do cater for, well, if you do take over and above your contractual entitlement, are you going to get paid, or what are you going to get paid? The other common thing that's being used now is the ability to buy extra holidays. So the easiest way to think about this is it's effectively unpaid leave, isn't it? You can buy another day's leave and it'll just get deducted off, which again appeals to a lot of people. For childcare reasons, for people who want to travel the world. So that's something else to think about as well.
But buying holidays of each other, I've also heard that certain companies, people who've got extra holidays, they even buy their days off each other. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things possible, so long as they're taking their statutory minimum, which is required by law, primarily for health and safety purposes.
Yeah, and wellness. Wellness completely.
Just nice. And I'm really sorry, Lee Robson, I didn't see your question, which you submitted almost 45 minutes ago. Goes back to salaries. I've just gone up the chat box. Is that all right on holidays? Unless you want to add anything else, Ami and Claire.
It's okay. Owen actually got back to myself.
Sorry.
No, cool. That's okay. It was just to get an idea of a breakdown. So obviously I understand that's maybe like an average.
That's total average. 34k is not for travel consultant whatsoever. It's an average across the board. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Lee. Okay. Anything else to add, Ami and Claire? We've talked about holidays, overtime. Anything else to add on that?
I think the other thing that, I mean, none of us on this, neither myself Bachelor or Clara or immigration experts, but it's worth noting that the skilled worker visa minimum salary from April will be 38,700. So this notion of, oh, well, we can't recruit in this country, so we'll just get someone from overseas, that's going to come at a considerable cost now, because it's nearly a 50% rise to the previous minimum, which I believe was around 26,200.
And then you've got the sponsorship license on top. So you then have to pay the 20 grand just to get one person license. So yeah.
Yes. So
huge.
It's not as an attractive option, and that ties in with the government's policy to reduce net migration. So that means we've got to look at the existing pool of employees in this country and how we can attract them to various workplaces. And the notion of reducing salaries is just simply not going to work, is it? We're struggling as an industry as it is. And the other thing,
have an impact on all our businesses. Every single one of our businesses is going to be impacted by these changes and what you're talking about. There was
an interesting report with Corn Ferry. So people who are in HR probably know who Corn Ferry are. And they did a report last year at a global level of jobs and vacancies by 2030. And you're looking at over, according to them, correct me if I'm wrong, and I would need to double check my figures, but over 300 million jobs will be difficult to fill, and people will be struggling to fill. So that's including us. We already know we have that deficit. So, we've got an aging population. We've got less and less young people being attracted to various sectors and wanting different things. And so you're adding that on top of that. And what Corn Ferry said, which I thought was great, was to put that into perspective. I think it was like the population of Germany or something with jobs that they were going to be so maybe it wasn't 300 million, it might have been 85 million. Apologies, I've got so many facts going on in my head with all these reports, but it was a lot, and actually that's quite scary for us, because we struggle against some of the larger things, and the government, the focus on STEM, and don't get me started on defunding and all these sorts of things that are going on. Just to kind of highlight what you're saying, we have to start looking at how we make ourselves more attractive, and a lot of that's to do with our package, the package that we offer.
And otherwise, it's not just about attracting. We're going to lose talent as well, because we know for a fact that some people aren't happy. People are going to leave, and we know because we see it as a recruitment consultancy. People are wanting to leave their jobs for all the reasons we've been talking about today. And actually a very interesting stat, Total Jobs thanks Owen for sending that to me today, did a report, they did an overview of the travel industry in 2023. Wages increased last year. We know that, across the board, by which percentage? It depends on which area, which level, which discipline. But apparently this is from Total Jobs, okay? Only 62% of those working in the travel industry were satisfied with their salary, compared with 65% in 2022. So that means that's not a lot, is it? That's not a lot that are happy. So 62% were satisfied, meaning 40% weren't. Yeah, that's that 40% that are going to scarper or leave or jump ship. Or worse still, they're going to leave our sector, which leaves the pool of talent even bigger or even smaller, and the roles are going to get even bigger. So, on that note,
what a cheerful note.
But we know what an amazing industry it is. We know, that we've got so many different travel companies here that I know a lot of the names here. That I'm really hoping that today's session was of use. Ladies, is there anything you'd like to add before we close off? Predictions for 2024? We're only in February.
Well, I think it ties into one of the questions that Simon's asked about flexible working.
So that's my next point. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. There are changes that are going to be happening to the flexible working regulations from April of this year. In short, it's going to be easier for employees to be able to bring applications for flexible working, because it will become a day one right, as opposed to having to be there for 26 weeks. They can make more than one request. They can make up to 2 requests per year. And also the employer has 2 months to consider the request, whereas previously they had it 3 months. the employee won't have to give reasons as to how the request will impact their job, whereas they did have to before. So the whole process, as you can see, is very much heavily now weighted towards employees. Now, that's not to say that just because they request to work flexibly, that you as an employer have to grant that request. But you do need to look at it seriously, because flexible working, it's not going to go away. And I'm not just talking about, am I working from home or am I working in the office? It's a whole host of things. It's compressed hours, it's term time working, it's starting early or finishing late. It could be like some employers doing work when you want, from where you want. It's a whole thing. And those might be the things that if base salaries are not quite competitive, may swing an employee coming towards you as compared to what competitors are doing.
Absolutely. Claire, anything to add? I've got a couple of questions I'm going to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Laura's talking about hybrid working. I think, you know, everyone's been talking since post-pandemic about hybrid working. Young people are coming in demanding their hybrid working, what they want and everything else. And actually, I think we're going to get a kickback. And I think we're already starting to see it. And I think employers are going to start saying, do you know what? Actually, particularly for new staff and younger people that are coming into the workplace for the first time, we need that more interaction, face to face. You know, we all know, or those who are old like me, remember how much we learned just sitting in an office from the people around us. And you do lose that when you're hybrid. So I think, again, that's a challenge we have to do. What makes us as attractive to that people actually want to come into the office? And actually, I do think it's surprising. I think we are starting to see a lot of the younger generation going, do you know what? Actually, I don't want to work from home. It sounded really great at first, but actually, I want to go into the office. I want to have that social life. I want to get to know the people I work with, not just over a screen. So I do think, whilst everyone's going, you know, there was a bit well publicized. I think it was Google or Amazon who insisted everybody had to come back into the office 5 days a week or something, and then immediately sort of went, oh no, we're not, you know, we're not going to do that. But actually, I think they were just too early, and I don't think we'll ever go back to 5 days in the office. But I do think we'll start to see a shift backwards with more people wanting that.
And we're noticing it. We're noticing it with the vacancies that we're getting on as well. A few more clients are now asking for people to come in a few more days a week and so on. Just some stats from last year, the roles that we got on here at C&M, and a mixture of different types of companies and roles, as you know, I think 45% of them were hybrid, 25% of them were fully remote, and the remaining were like 20-30% of all in the office, and they were the roles that were difficult to fill. Candidates are still looking for an element of hybrid. Some are actually still looking for remote, but as you say, Claire, it's not, you know, it is a candidate-driven market, but fundamentally it's the business wants and the budget the business needs.
I've been working for 30+ years, so actually it's very different for me in terms of working from home.
Absolutely.
But I think a 20-year-old first time in the workplace,
yeah,
I think that they will.
You need it, and also they need to learn their interpersonal skills, communication. Something I said on Tuesday was the ability to network, which if they're behind a screen they won't be able to.
I think Laura Ryan's just asked a question. What about hybrid working? How essential is this for recruits? Pretty essential. I think all of us are going to be saying to our grandchildren, when I was your age, I used to go into the office 9 to 5, 5 days a week, because that's going to be unheard of. And I think hybrid working is around to stay, but I think there is a bit more of a shift now, which is what I've said all along, right the way through the pandemic, towards being more presence in the office, whether that's a minimum of 3 days or whatever it is.
Again, sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think the thing is every company is going to have different requirements, and it's not one size fits all. And a lot of companies I've dealt with through the pandemic and continue now say our office is open. We expect people to be in every Tuesday and Thursday, say, but actually, if you want to come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the office is here. And what they are seeing is a number of people who are taking that up. And I think also, you know, we are all over the UK, but when you're in big cities and stuff, a lot of, particularly again, the younger people are in flat shares, for instance. So there's 4 of them living in a flat. They don't want to be sitting working from their bedroom all day long, you know. So there is that side of it, and also, I mean, okay, right, I'm old, but you know, I loved that after work socialization, and people move to big cities because they want that social aspect. So I think again, there isn't necessarily one size fits all. I think we sometimes get carried away with what we think the next generation are, because we read the reports, like I posted the Corn Ferry one on there, but actually let's ask them, and let's ask the individuals and give them the option. And as Ami said, they have day one right now to ask for flexible working, which is great. However, you know, everyone's going to be different, and that shouldn't mean that you can't hopefully adapt your business around that, but it has to meet the needs of the business, and that goes down to the flexible working policies that you have and following the law around that.
Yeah, and just because we're saying when we were in our 20s and 30s and 40s, but you know, I was C&M, I was living and working in central London, and I had to go out every night. And as we presume and assume the youngsters, the Gen Zs onwards, do want that, but I'm not in their shoes. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe, like you say, the new norm is the hybrid model rather than going out every single night after work. Sharon, who had left us, said, thanks for a great discussion, had to drop off. Perhaps we can regroup on how everyone is doing with holiday pay in a few months' time. Absolutely. I'm sure we will regroup on that. Anything else to add?
No,
My ANC?
I think it's just the future we just need to talk about now, isn't it, Bash?
Absolutely. Before we close, would anybody like to mention anything or ask a question? No, everyone's been quite proactive in the group. Okay. So thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. We really, really appreciate your time. I hope that you found it of use, thought-provoking and informative. If there's any subjects that you'd like Ami, myself and Claire to cover moving forward, anything to do with people, your people, be it from an HR, legislative, recruitment point of view, anything, then we will cover it. We have our next session on Wednesday, the 27th of March, already booked in, and we're going to do something on well-being. So a little bit less heavy than today, but well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being, alcohol in the workplace, alcohol in the industry. So we will be marketing that out. Hopefully we can have many of you joining us. Lastly, we are also considering doing a live event, a face-to-face event later on in the year to cover all the very subjects that are very close to our hearts. We know there's many events out there throughout the year, but this isn't going to be, you know, it's not a money-making opportunity or anything like that. We want to get as many people in a room as we possibly can, and we obviously put some nuts and bolts on it. But we'd just like to ask a question. If we were to put something like this on, would you, well, I've polled it again, would you prefer, there we go, don't know how many people are left, they've probably left us now, haven't they? And that, back to that. If we're to put on a future event, would you like it to be the morning or the afternoon, or you don't mind? This is important, ladies, for us.
Yeah, and I think one thing I wanted to add, Bash, to what you were saying, you know, all the different subjects that we want to cover, it's actually what you would like us to cover.
Yes,
and
sorry,
and also
it's not about us at all,
we will source speakers. So if there's specific things that you want to know about, we can go out and find people that can come in and give additional advice in that. So it isn't just the three of us. Yeah,
absolutely. And this has been interesting. Don't mind 50%. Oh, afternoons. You were right, Ami. More in the afternoon. Yeah, totally agreed there. It's what you guys want. It's what you guys want, and because it's subject, all of these things we're talking are so related to all of what we do in our day jobs that we care so much, and we want you guys involved and you guys to contribute as well. So please do let us know, either in the chat box or pop myself, Ami or Claire an email. We will be following up with an email with the recording on it as well. So please feel free to email us as well. But hope you enjoyed it all, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your days. And thanks again, Ami and Claire, for your contribution. I could not do that without you. Ami, you had a lot of stats to give today, so really appreciate that. Yeah. That jazz. I think that's everything covered. All my notes. Yes. Look forward to seeing you very soon. We hope you can join us in March as well.
Thank you.